The galactic boldest empire learned fear from humanity. Part 1. The crimson warships of the Korthak Dominion cut through space like knives through silk. For 3,000 years, these massive vessels had brought fear to every corner of the galaxy. Their red hulls gleamed under distant stars, and their weapons could turn entire planets into ash. Emperor Vorthak the Merciless sat on his throne aboard the flagship Blood of Conquest. His dark eyes stared at the star maps floating before him. The Korthak were tall beings, standing nearly 8 feet high. Their skin was gray like stone, and their faces showed no emotion. They felt no fear, no doubt, no mercy. This made them perfect conquerors. "My Emperor," said General Thrax, approaching the throne. His boots clicked on the metal floor. "Our scouts have found another system, 27,000 light-years from our border." Vorthak turned his head slowly. "Tell me about it." "A small yellow star with 9 planets. The third planet is blue and green. It has water and air. Our sensors show life forms there." The Emperor's mouth curved into what might have been a smile on another species. On a Korthak, it looked like a threat. "Intelligent life?" "Yes, my Emperor. They call themselves humans. Their technology is primitive. They still use chemical rockets to leave their world. They fight with metal projectiles instead of energy weapons." Vorthak stood from his throne. He was even taller standing up, his shadow falling across the bridge. "How many of them?" "About 8 billion scattered across their single world. They have divided themselves into many small nations. They fight each other constantly." The Emperor walked to the large window that showed the stars outside. "They fight each other instead of working together. Typical of weak species." "What are their defenses?" General Thrax checked his data pad. "Primitive nuclear weapons. Some basic satellites. Their fastest ships take years to reach their neighboring planets. They have never left their star system." "Perfect." Vorthak turned back to face his general. "How long to prepare the fleet?" 3 months to gather the third fleet, my Emperor. But surely such a primitive world does not need our full attention. Perhaps a single battle group would be enough." Vorthak's eyes narrowed. "General Thrax, in 3,000 years of conquest, have we ever failed to crush a world completely?" "No, my Emperor." "Then we will not change our methods now. Ready the third fleet. I want 500 ships. I want this world to serve as an example to any other species that might think to resist us." General Thrax bowed his head. "It will be done." As the general left, Vorthak returned to studying the star maps. Earth was just another blue dot among billions. Soon it would be red with conquest like all the others. 3 months later, the Korthak Third Fleet gathered at the edge of human space. 500 warships hung in the darkness between stars. Each ship was the size of a human city. Their weapons could crack moons. Their shields could stop any attack the humans might try. Admiral Korvex commanded the fleet from his dreadnought Endless Victory. He had led 40 successful conquests. Every species had surrendered when they saw his ships. Most begged for mercy before the first shot was fired. "Send the message," Admiral Korvex ordered. The communication beam reached Earth in minutes. Every radio, television, and computer on the planet received the same message at the same time. "Humans of Earth. I am Admiral Korvex of the Korthak Dominion. Your world now belongs to the Empire. You have 1 rotation of your planet to surrender completely. Lay down all weapons. Gather in your largest cities. Prepare for processing. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your world. This is your only warning." The message played in every language humans spoke. Images of the Korthak fleet appeared on every screen. The ships were so large they blocked out stars. On Earth, chaos erupted. Some governments tried to negotiate. Others prepared for war. Most people simply stared at their screens in shock. Admiral Korvex watched Earth through his ship's sensors. He saw the panic in the large cities. He saw the humans running in fear. He saw their primitive military forces scrambling to respond. "Just like all the others," he told his officers. "By tomorrow they will be begging us to spare them." But something was different about the human response. While many humans did panic, others began to work. Scientists shared information across the globe faster than ever before. Military leaders who had been enemies for decades started talking to each other. Factories that made cars and computers began retooling to make weapons. The humans did something that surprised the Korthak observers. Instead of every nation acting alone, they began to unite. Ancient enemies put aside their differences. Resources flowed from one continent to another. Languages that had never been translated were decoded in hours. "Admiral," said his tactical officer, The humans are not responding as expected? Korvax frowned. Explain. Instead of surrendering or fighting among themselves, they appear to be organizing. Their communication networks are burning with activity. Their military forces are consolidating. It does not matter, Admiral Korvax said. Let them organize. Let them unite. It will only make their defeat more complete. When we crush them all at once, every other species in the galaxy will know the price of resistance. The Korthak had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had faced species with better technology, larger populations, and stronger warriors. But they had never faced a species that could transform fear into determination so quickly. On Earth, President Chen of the Pacific Federation spoke to the world. We stand at the edge of extinction or the beginning of our greatest chapter. These aliens think we are weak because we fight among ourselves. They do not understand that our conflicts have made us strong. We know how to fight. We know how to survive. And now we know how to unite. The humans had 24 hours to surrender. Instead, they spent those hours preparing for war. Every factory worked around the clock. Every scientist shared their knowledge. Every soldier prepared to defend not just their country, but their species. Admiral Korvax watched the preparations with mild interest. The humans were certainly energetic, but energy without power was useless. When his fleet attacked, their unity would crumble like sand. As the deadline approached, the Korthak fleet moved into position around Earth. The ships formed a perfect sphere around the planet. Every human military installation was targeted. Every major city was marked for bombardment. Admiral, came the call from the communication officer. We are receiving a response from Earth. Put it on screen. The image showed a human woman in military uniform. She stood straight and looked directly into the camera. Her eyes showed no fear. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We have received your demand for surrender. Here is our response. No. We will not surrender our world. We will not bow to tyrants. You want our planet? Come and take it. The transmission ended. Admiral Korvax stared at the blank screen for a moment. Then he began to laugh. It was a sound like grinding metal. Admirable stupidity, he said. Very well. If they choose extinction, we will provide it. All ships prepare for orbital bombardment. Let us show the galaxy what happens to species that defy the Dominion. The Korthak fleet powered up their weapons. Energy readings spiked across 500 ships. In space, the darkness lit up with the glow of charging death rays. Earth's surface showed no signs of panic. The humans had made their choice. Now they would face the consequences. But in the depths of space, something had changed. For the first time in 3,000 years, a species had looked at Korthak might and said no. The word echoed across the galaxy, carried by monitoring stations of a dozen other conquered races. No. The war for Earth was about to begin. The Galactic Boldest Empire Learned Fear. From Humanity, Part 2. The first Korthak energy beams struck Earth like hammers of light. Mountains turned to glass. Oceans boiled where the weapons touched them. Cities that had stood for thousands of years became craters in seconds. Admiral Korvax watched the destruction from his command chair. The orbital bombardment was proceeding exactly as planned. Soon the humans would break. They always did. But something was wrong. Admiral, his sensor officer called out, I am detecting launches from the planet's surface. Launches? Their rockets cannot reach us at this distance. Sir, these are not rockets. The energy signatures are different. On the main screen, thousands of objects rose from Earth. They moved faster than any human rocket should be able to move. They changed direction in ways that should have been impossible. What are those? Admiral Korvax demanded. His science officer worked frantically at his station. Sir, they appear to be modified human spacecraft, but the technology is... I do not understand how they are moving like that. The first wave of human ships reached the Korthak fleet in minutes instead of hours. They were small, barely the size of Korthak fighters, but they moved like living things, dancing between the massive alien warships. Captain Maria Santos piloted the lead fighter, a craft that had been a civilian transport just days ago. Human engineers had somehow attached Korthak technology, salvaged from a crashed scout ship. The combination should not have worked, but it did. All units, this is Falcon Leader, she broadcast. Remember the plan. Hit their weapon systems, then get out. We cannot match their firepower, but we can be faster. The human fighters swarmed around the Korthak ships like angry insects. Their weapons were weak compared to the aliens, but they aimed for specific targets. Engine clusters, weapon mounts, sensor arrays. Admiral Korvex felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Confusion. How are they moving so fast? How did they modify their technology so quickly? His tactical officer checked his instruments again. Sir, it appears they have somehow integrated our own technology with theirs. But the modifications are crude, impossible, they should not work. But they did work. The human ships danced through space with an unpredictability that the Korthak computers could not calculate. Every time the aliens tried to target one, it was somewhere else. Worse, the humans were learning. With each attack, they got better. They found weak points in Korthak shields. They discovered blind spots in their sensors. They adapted faster than any species the Korthak had ever encountered. On Earth, General Marcus Torres watched the battle from a bunker deep underground. The surface above him was burning, but his people were fighting back. Get me a connection to Beijing, Moscow, and New Delhi. We need to coordinate the next wave. The underground facilities hummed with activity. In hidden factories, human workers assembled weapons from alien technology. Scientists who had never seen advanced physics before were rewriting the laws of science. Children who played video games were piloting drones against real alien warships. Dr. Elena Vasquez ran between computer terminals in a facility that had been a university just days ago. The alien tech responds to neural patterns, she shouted over the noise. If we can map human brain waves to their control systems, we can make their own weapons more effective in our hands. Above ground, the battle raged on. The Korthak fleet was massive and powerful, but the humans refused to fight the way they were supposed to. Instead of forming battle lines, they struck from everywhere at once. Instead of protecting their important ships, they used them as bait for ambushes. Captain Jake Morrison led a squadron of converted mining ships against a Korthak destroyer. The alien ship was 10 times larger than anything he commanded, but size meant nothing when the enemy could not hit you. All ships, remember what we learned from the octopus videos, he broadcast. Be unpredictable. Make them think you are going one way, then go another. The mining ships scattered in different directions, then suddenly converged on the destroyer from 6 angles at once. Their improvised weapons barely scratched the alien hull, but they hit the shield generators. For just a moment, the destroyer was vulnerable. That moment was enough. A human submarine, somehow modified to work in space, fired a nuclear torpedo through the gap in the shields. The destroyer died in a flash of light. Admiral Korvex stood up from his command chair. This was not how conquests were supposed to work. Status report. Sir, we have lost 17 ships. The humans have lost. We cannot count their losses. They build new ships faster than we can destroy them. Impossible. Their industrial capacity is primitive. Sir, they are not just building ships. They are converting everything. Civilian transports, cargo haulers, even atmospheric craft. They attach our own weapons to them and send them against us. The Admiral stared at the tactical display. Red dots marked destroyed Korthak ships. Blue dots showed human forces. There were thousands of blue dots and more appeared every minute. How many ships do they have? We estimate they have launched over 10,000 craft of various sizes. But sir, they are not all warships. Many appear to be civilian vehicles with weapons attached. Civilians? They send civilians against us? Yes, sir. We are detecting old humans and young humans flying side by side. Their communications suggest that entire families are participating in the battle. Admiral Korvex felt something that he had never felt before, a cold feeling in his chest. Was this what other species called fear? Recall the fleet to defensive positions. Maintain bombardment of the surface. But the surface bombardment was becoming less effective. The humans had moved their important facilities underground or underwater. They had spread their population across the planet. There were no single targets that could break their resistance, and they kept learning. Human engineers studied every piece of Korthak technology they could capture. They did not try to copy it exactly. Instead, they improved it in ways that the original designers had never considered. A Korthak energy weapon designed to cut through armor became a tool for instant mining. A shield generator meant for spaceships was rebuilt to protect entire cities. A communication device became a weapon that could confuse enemy sensors. Admiral, the communication officer called. We are receiving a transmission from the human leader. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the screen again. Behind her, humans worked frantically at stations that mixed alien technology with human computers. "Admiral Korvex," she said, "I want to thank you. Thank me. For the technology. For the challenge. For showing us what we are capable of when we work together. You wanted to conquer Earth in one day. Instead, you have given us the tools to reach the stars. The transmission switch to show images from around Earth. Human ships were leaving the planet in all directions. Not fleeing, but expanding. They carried passengers and equipment to the moon, to Mars, to the asteroids. You see," Admiral Chen continued, "you made one mistake. You thought that destroying our cities would break our spirit. Instead, you freed us from the need to protect fixed positions. Now we can be everywhere at once." The screen went dark. Admiral Korvex looked around his bridge. His officers stared back at him with expressions he had never seen on Korthak faces. Uncertainty. Doubt. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "we are detecting human ships moving beyond their solar system. They appear to be heading for our supply lines. How is that possible? They have never left their star system before. Sir, they are using our own navigation technology, but they have modified it. Their ships are faster than ours now." The cold feeling in Admiral Korvex's chest grew stronger. For 3,000 years, the Korthak had been the hunters. Now, for the first time, they were beginning to feel like prey. The battle for Earth was far from over, but already the humans had done something no other species had managed. They had made the Korthak fleet retreat, and they were just getting started. The Galactic Boldest Empire Learned Fear from Humanity. Part 3. News of the human resistance spread across the galaxy faster than light. On conquered worlds, species that had not spoken above a whisper for centuries began to look up at the stars with something they had almost forgotten. Hope the Zephyrian people had been slaves to the Korthak for 800 years. Their homeworld was a factory planet now, producing weapons for the Dominion. But in the deep mines where they worked, they whispered about the humans who had said no. Keth Ka was a Zephyrian supervisor in Mine 7. His people had wings once. Before the Korthak cut them off to make them better workers, he gathered his crew around him during the rest period. "Is it true?" asked Yelna, her voice barely audible. "Did a species really fight back?" Keth Ka nodded. "The supply ships are 3 days late. The guards are nervous. Something has changed." On the other side of the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on 100 worlds. The Silicate Collective had been extinct for 2,000 years, except for the few survivors kept as curiosities in Korthak museums. But even they felt the shift in the cosmic balance. Back in Earth's solar system, the human expansion continued at an impossible pace. What had taken them decades to plan before the invasion, they now accomplished in days. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of Luna Base, humanity's first permanent settlement on the moon. 2 weeks ago, it had been just an idea in a scientist's notebook. Now it housed 50,000 people and served as the central hub for human space operations. "The key is adaptability," she explained to a group of newly arrived engineers. "The Korthak technology is advanced, but it is rigid. It does exactly what it was designed to do, nothing more. Human technology is messy, improvised, but it can be anything we need it to be." She pointed to a display showing human ships throughout the solar system. "We have mining operations on 6 asteroids, manufacturing plants on Mars, and research stations on the moons of Jupiter. All built in 2 weeks with a combination of our technology and theirs." Captain Morrison, now promoted to admiral due to the rapid expansion of human forces, reviewed the tactical situation from his flagship Determination. The ship had been a cruise liner 3 weeks ago. Now it bristled with weapons taken from destroyed Korthak vessels. "Report," he ordered. "Sir, our deep-range scouts have made contact with the Korthak supply convoys. The aliens are bringing reinforcements from 3 sectors. How many ships?" "At least 2,000, sir. But they are spread across multiple routes. They do not expect resistance away from Earth." Admiral Morrison smiled. "Then let us teach them about human nature. Order the strike groups to intercept. Remember, we are not trying to destroy them all. We want them to fear traveling anywhere in space." The human strategy was unlike anything the Korthak had faced. Instead of defending fixed positions, humans attacked everywhere at once. Their ships appeared from behind asteroids, from within gas clouds, from directions that should have been impossible. Commander Vex led a Korthak supply convoy through what should have been safe space. His 10 ships carried weapons and fuel for the fleet at Earth. The route had been used for centuries without incident. "Sir, I am detecting multiple contacts closing fast." Commander Vex studied his displays. "How many ships?" "Unknown, sir. They appear and disappear from our sensors. The energy signatures are confusing. The human ships struck like ghosts. They disabled the escort vessels with precise attacks, then disappeared before the Korthak could respond. But they did not destroy the supply ships. Instead, they broadcasted messages in perfect Korthak language. Attention, Korthak vessels. You are now prisoners of the Human Defense Force. You will be treated according to the laws of war. Your ships and cargo are being confiscated. You have 10 minutes to evacuate to the life pods we are providing." Commander Vex stared at the message in confusion. They want us to abandon our ships? Why do they not simply destroy us? His communication officer looked equally puzzled. "Sir, they are sending detailed instructions for the evacuation. They have provided life pods with food, water, and communication equipment. This makes no sense. Why show mercy to enemies?" But the humans had their reasons. Every Korthak they captured alive was one more source of information. Every ship they seized intact was one more piece of technology to study and improve. And every act of mercy was reported back to the Dominion fleet, causing confusion and doubt among warriors who understood only strength. Back on Earth, President Chen addressed the scattered human population. The surface cities were mostly ruins now, but humans had adapted. Underground cities connected by tunnel systems housed millions. Underwater colonies thrived beneath the oceans. Orbital habitats rotated around the planet like mechanical moons. "My fellow humans," she said, her words carried across the solar system. 3 weeks ago we faced extinction. Today we have colonies on 4 worlds and mining operations on dozens of asteroids. The aliens thought they would find sheep. Instead, they awakened wolves. In the Korthak fleet around Earth, Admiral Korvex received reports that made his confusion turn to something darker. Fear was a word that did not exist in Korthak language, but they were learning what it meant. "Sir, we have lost contact with Supply Convoy 7. Pirates? No, sir. The life pods were recovered with the crews intact. They report being captured by humans operating far beyond their solar system." Admiral Korvex stood slowly. "That is impossible. How did primitive ships travel 3 light years in a matter of days?" "Sir, intelligence suggests they have not only captured our technology but improved it. Their ships are now faster than ours." The tactical officer brought up a galactic map. Red dots marked the locations of human activity. There were dozens of them, scattered across multiple star systems. "Admiral, we are tracking human ships here, here, and here." The officer pointed to locations that spanned half the sector. "They are not retreating. They are expanding." Emperor Vorthak the Merciless sat in his throne room studying reports from the Earth campaign. What should have been a routine conquest had become a growing crisis. His generals stood before him in silence, afraid to speak. "Explain to me," the Emperor said slowly, "how a primitive species has captured 12 of our supply convoys, established colonies on 17 asteroids, and somehow made contact with 3 of our former conquest worlds." General Thrax spoke carefully. "My Emperor, the humans appear to have a natural talent for rapid adaptation. They do not simply copy our technology. They improve it in ways our designers never considered. And they fight with an intensity we have never encountered. Not just their soldiers, but their entire population. Children pilot drones against our ships. Elderly humans volunteer for dangerous missions. Scientists work until they collapse from exhaustion." Emperor Vorthak's eyes narrowed. "They are just another species. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. Yes, my Emperor. But none of those species had ever faced extinction before. The humans have been killing each other for thousands of years. They know how to fight when survival is at stake." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Around the galaxy, his empire had been built on the fear of his name. But now there was a species that did not fear him. Worse, they were making his other subjects remember what courage looked like. On the mining world of Proxo 7, Korthak overseers watched their slave workers with growing concern. The workers were still obedient, but something had changed. They moved differently. They looked at their guards differently. When the shift change came, Overseer Maltok noticed that the workers were singing. It was not a Korthak song. It was something new in their own language about distant stars and freedom. Maltok tried to stop the singing, but it was like trying to stop the wind. Every time he silenced one group, another began. The song spread through the mines, then to the surface, then to other facilities. The Korthak were learning that conquest was easier than control. And across the galaxy, conquered species were remembering that empires could fall. The war that had begun as a simple invasion was becoming something much larger. Humanity had lit a fire that was spreading from world to world. The Korthak Dominion, which had ruled through fear for 3,000 years, was about to discover what it felt like to be afraid. And the humans were still just getting started. The Galactic Boldest Empire learned fear from humanity. Part 4. 6 months after the first human ship left Earth's solar system, the galaxy was burning with rebellion. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, a ship built from the salvaged remains of 20 Korthak vessels. Around her, the bridge crew included humans, Zephyrians, silicates, and members of 6 other species that had joined the growing coalition. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Kethka, the former Zephyrian mine worker who now served as her tactical officer. Long-range sensors detect the Korthak 7th Fleet moving to intercept us at the Caldra system. Chen studied the tactical display. 200 Korthak ships versus her fleet of 300 vessels from a dozen different species. 6 months ago, those odds would have meant certain death. Today, they looked almost fair. How many Korthak ships have we captured intact this month? 47, Admiral. The crews are following the surrender protocols we broadcast to them. Chen nodded. The surrender protocols had been another human innovation. Instead of fighting to the death, captured Korthak crews were given a choice: join the coalition or return to their empire with a message. Most chose to return home, carrying stories of humans who showed mercy to their enemies and fought alongside former slaves as equals. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the Strike Force Vengeance, leading a squadron of ships crewed entirely by humans who had lost everything in the initial bombardment of Earth. His target was the Korthak industrial world of Vex Prime, where the Empire manufactured its most advanced weapons. Remember the plan, he broadcast to his squadron. We are not here to destroy the factories. We are here to liberate the workers and capture the technology. The Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace above Vex Prime with surgical precision. Human ships had become faster than anything the Korthak had ever built, using modifications that pushed alien technology beyond its original limits. Below them, the planet's surface was covered with massive industrial complexes. Millions of enslaved beings worked in those factories, building weapons for their own oppression. Sir, reported his communications officer, we are receiving transmissions from the surface. The workers are ready, Morrison smiled grimly. For 3 months, human agents had been in contact with resistance cells across the galaxy. They shared something that the Korthak could never understand: the ability to inspire hope in others. The planetary defense grid activated, but the resistance was ready. Explosions bloomed across the planet as enslaved workers sabotaged their own guard posts. The mighty factories that had produced Korthak weapons for centuries suddenly went dark. Morrison's ships descended through the atmosphere like falling stars. But instead of bringing destruction, they brought liberation ships that had been converted from cargo haulers to evacuation transports. Attention workers of Vex Prime, Morrison broadcast on all frequencies. This is Captain Morrison of the Human Liberation Force. Freedom has arrived. Gather at the designated evacuation points. We are taking you home. In the factories below, beings who had not seen their homeworlds for generations wept as they heard the words. The Zephyrians spread their cut wings as far as they could. The silicates sang in harmonies that had been forbidden for 2,000 years. Species that had never met before worked together to help each other reach the human ships. But the liberation of Vex Prime was just one of dozens of operations happening simultaneously across the galaxy. The humans had learned to coordinate attacks across impossible distances, striking at multiple targets at once in a way that stretched the Korthak forces beyond their limits. Emperor Vorthak the Merciless no longer sat calmly on his throne. He paced his command chamber like a caged predator, studying reports that grew worse by the day. "Explain to me," he growled, "how these humans coordinate operations across 12 sectors simultaneously." General Thrax, now the only officer brave enough to speak directly to the Emperor, consulted his datapad. "My Emperor, they appear to use captured communication technology in ways we never intended. They have also recruited species with natural telepathic abilities to serve as instant messengers. And our response? Sir, we are fighting on 200 fronts simultaneously. Every time we send forces to stop one human operation, 3 more begin elsewhere. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. The Emperor stopped pacing. Explain. Sir, they do not seek to hold territory. They strike, liberate the workers, steal our technology, and disappear. Then they share everything they have learned with other resistance cells. Every victory makes them stronger and spreads their influence. Vorthak stared at the galactic map. Red zones marked areas under human influence. The red was spreading like a disease across his empire. How many worlds have we lost? Lost, sir? Or liberated by the humans? The Emperor's eyes blazed with rage. I care nothing for the distinction. 47 worlds have declared independence, sir. 31 have been evacuated entirely, with the populations relocated to worlds outside our territory. 16 have become bases for human operations, and our fleets? We have lost over 800 ships. But sir, the humans rarely destroy our vessels entirely. They capture them, study them, and somehow make them better than they were when we built them. In the depths of space, Admiral Chen's coalition fleet prepared for the largest battle of the war. Intelligence reports indicated that Emperor Vorthak himself was leading a massive fleet to crush the human rebellion once and for all. The meeting of fleet commanders took place aboard the Indomitable. Around the table sat representatives of 23 species, all united under human leadership. It was a sight that would have been impossible under Korthak rule. Former enemies working together as equals. The Emperor is bringing everything he has, Chen explained. 2,000 ships, including his personal dreadnought Final Victory. This is his attempt to end the war in one decisive battle. Commander Irel Sa of the Silicate Fleet spoke with a voice like crystal chimes. Admiral Chen, our people have been slaves for 2 millennia. We have forgotten how to fight. No, Chen replied firmly. You have never forgotten how to survive. And survival is what this war is really about. The Korthak expect us to meet them in traditional battle formation. Instead, we are going to show them what humans call asymmetric warfare. The plan was ambitious beyond anything attempted before. Instead of meeting the Korthak fleet directly, the coalition forces would split into 50 small groups and attack from every direction at once. Each group would target specific systems on the enemy ships: engines, weapons, communications. Remember, Chen addressed all the commanders, we are not trying to destroy their entire fleet. We are trying to capture it. Every ship we take intact is another victory for freedom. As the fleets moved toward their confrontation, something unprecedented happened across the galaxy. On worlds still under Korthak control, the enslaved populations began coordinated uprisings. They had been inspired by human broadcasts and organized by resistance cells. But the courage to act came from within themselves. The Korthak Dominion, which had ruled through fear for 3,000 years, suddenly found itself fighting not just human fleets in space, but rebellions on every world they controlled. Emperor Vorthak stood on the bridge of Final Victory, surrounded by the largest fleet in Korthak history, but for the first time in his life he was not certain of victory. Sir, his sensor operator reported, the human fleet is spreading out. They are not forming battle lines. What are they doing? Sir, they appear to be surrounding us. Vorthak looked at the tactical display. Instead of one enemy fleet, he faced dozens of smaller groups approaching from every direction. It was like being attacked by a swarm of insects. No matter, he declared, we will destroy them all. But as the battle began, the Emperor discovered that the humans had learned from every previous encounter. Their ships moved in ways that defied prediction. Their tactics changed faster than his computers could adapt. And worst of all, they fought with a passion that the emotionless Korthak could not understand. The war that had begun with the invasion of Earth was reaching its climax, but the outcome was no longer certain. The hunters had become the hunted, and fear was spreading through the ranks of an empire that had never known defeat. The galaxy was about to discover that sometimes the smallest species could cast the longest shadows. The galactic boldest empire learned fear from humanity. Part 5, the Battle of the Nexus Void, would be remembered as the day an empire fell and a new age began. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as 2,000 Korthak ships faced her coalition fleet in the darkness between stars. Emperor Vorthak's dreadnought, Final Victory, hung at the center of his formation like a metal moon. The ship was 20 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could shatter planets. Around it, the Korthak fleet formed perfect geometric patterns, a display of military precision that had intimidated the galaxy for millennia. But the human-led coalition did not form patterns. Their ships moved like living things, flowing around the Korthak formation in streams and currents that followed no predictable path. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Kethka, "all coalition forces are in position. We have ships approaching from 17 different vectors." Chen nodded. "Signal all commanders. Execute Operation Liberation." The battle began not with a single massive exchange, but with hundreds of small strikes happening simultaneously. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids. Zephyrian fighters dove from above and below. Silicate vessels phased in and out of normal space using technology the Korthak had never seen before. Emperor Vorthak watched his tactical display with growing confusion. Where is their main attack? Why do they not concentrate their forces? His tactical officer worked frantically at his station. "Sir, they are everywhere at once. Every time we move to counter one group, 3 more appear elsewhere." The coalition had learned from every human war in history. They used tactics from Earth's ancient battles combined with alien technology to create something entirely new. Guerrilla warfare in 3-dimensional space, fought by species that had never worked together before, but shared a common dream of freedom. Captain Morrison led a strike force against the port side of the enemy formation. His target was not the heavily armed warships, but the support vessels that carried fuel and ammunition. "All ships, remember the pattern," he broadcast. "Hit the supply lines, disable the engines, capture the crews alive." The Vengeance and her escorts swept through the Korthak support fleet like a knife through silk. But instead of destroying the enemy ships, they used precision strikes to disable them. Boarding parties of humans and liberated slaves captured vessel after vessel. On the other side of the battle, Commander Iril Sa led the silicate crystal ships in a dance of pure energy. The silicates had been enslaved so long that the Korthak had forgotten they were once a spacefaring civilization. Now they remembered their ancient abilities, phasing their ships through solid matter to strike at the hearts of enemy vessels. But the most shocking moment came when the final victory itself came under attack. Not from weapons, but from words. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent months studying Korthak psychology. She had discovered something the Empire had hidden even from itself. Beneath their emotionless exterior, the Korthak were capable of doubt. Emperor Vorthak, her voice echoed through every speaker on every Korthak ship. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez of Earth. I want to ask you something. In 3,000 years of conquest, what have you built?" The Emperor stared at the communication screen. "What madness is this? You have conquered 1,000 worlds, but what have you created? You have enslaved 100 species, but what have you made better? You rule an empire built on fear, but when you are gone, what will remain?" Around the Emperor, his bridge crew listened in silence. It was a question none of them had ever considered. "The humans fight for their children's future," Dr. Vasquez continued. "The Zephyrians fight to soar free again. The Silicates fight to sing their crystal songs. What do the Korthak fight for?" In the midst of the space battle, something unprecedented happened. Korthak ships began to withdraw from combat, not retreating, but simply stopping. Their crews stared at their screens and asked themselves questions they had never been allowed to ask. Emperor Vorthak felt something cold spreading through his chest. He recognized it now as the fear that other species had always felt when facing his empire. But this was worse than fear. This was doubt. "All ships," he commanded, "ignore the human transmissions. Continue the attack," but his orders fell on confused minds. For the first time in their history, Korthak warriors were thinking instead of simply obeying. Captain Morrison seized the moment. "All coalition forces, the enemy is wavering. Begin boarding operations. Remember, we want prisoners, not casualties." Across the battlefield, human-led boarding parties began capturing Korthak ships intact. But instead of executing the crews, they offered them the same choice they had given to every other captured enemy: join the coalition or return home with a message of freedom. Most chose to return home. But some, for the first time in Korthak history, chose to change sides. Emperor Vorthak watched his empire crumble around him. Ships that had served his family for generations were surrendering to slaves and primitives. Warriors who had never known defeat were laying down their weapons. "My emperor," his communication officer said quietly, We are receiving surrender offers from 37 ships in our own fleet. Impossible. Sir, they say they no longer wish to fight for an empire that builds nothing and creates nothing. The final victory shuddered as human boarding parties attached to its hull. But they did not come with weapons drawn. They came with offers of negotiation. Admiral Chen led the boarding party personally. She walked through the corridors of the greatest ship in the Korthak fleet, accompanied by representatives of every species in her coalition. When she reached the bridge, Emperor Vorthak stood waiting for her. Around him, his officers had already laid down their weapons. Admiral Chen, the Emperor said. His voice was different now, lacking the cold certainty it had held for centuries. You have won. What are your terms? Chen looked around the bridge at beings who had ruled the galaxy through fear. Now they looked small and confused, like children who had lost their way. The same terms we offer everyone, she said. Freedom to choose your own path. We are not here to replace your empire with our own. We are here to give every species the right to decide its own future. The Emperor stared at her. You do not wish to rule? Rule what? A galaxy full of slaves. No, Emperor Vorthak. We want to build something your empire never could. A community of free worlds working together by choice, not fear. In the months that followed, the Korthak Dominion dissolved peacefully. Species that had been enslaved for millennia returned to their homeworlds. The Korthak themselves, freed from the burden of conquest, began to discover what they could create instead of destroy. The Galactic Federation that emerged was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humans provided the inspiration and coordination, but every species contributed their unique abilities. The Zephyrians became the messengers, carrying information between worlds on wings that had grown back. The Silicates became the builders, creating structures of living crystal that lasted for eons. Even the Korthak found their place. Their military precision, directed toward protection rather than conquest, made them excellent peacekeepers and engineers. Admiral Chen stood in the Federation Council chambers on New Geneva, a space station built jointly by 12 different species. Around her, representatives from across the galaxy debated issues of trade, exploration, and mutual aid. Admiral, asked Kethka, now the Federation's first Zephyrian ambassador, do you ever regret not taking control when you had the chance? You could have ruled the galaxy. Chen smiled, watching a group of human children play with young beings from 6 different worlds. Rule it? Why would we want to rule it when we can help it grow? Emperor Vorthak, now simply called Vorthak the Builder, worked on a construction project on the rebuilt world of Vex Prime. The former weapons factories had been converted to build schools, hospitals, and art centers. He wielded tools instead of weapons, and for the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced, pride in creation rather than destruction. The humans were right, he said to his work crew, which included former slaves working alongside former masters. Fear makes slaves, but hope makes builders. The war that had begun with the invasion of Earth had ended not with the destruction of an empire, but with its transformation into something better. The galaxy had learned that the strongest force in the universe was not the power to destroy, but the courage to hope. And in the depths of space, human ships continued to explore new systems, carrying with them a simple message that had changed everything. Every being deserves the right to choose their own destiny. The Korthak had tried to teach the galaxy fear. Instead, humanity had taught it something far more powerful, the strength that comes from standing together as equals. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun.